right, tonight's topic is gonna be to start out with string trimmers, aka weed eaters. The first weed eater I ever saw in my entire life is what my paternal grandparents owned. My grandma and Grandpa Reedy, my Grandpa Reedy died in 1981 or 1982, and my Grandma Reedy died in 1987. But they owned one of them electric trimmers with the prongs at the top handle you plug an extension cord into, in a nice kind of a rectangular shape motor housing. It may have been like, kind of light green in color, the best I can remember. Gotta take into account this was the early 80s, and so Dad borrowed that weed eater one time to weed eat, at our home we lived at in Illinois. We moved to Tennessee in 1983, but Dad was using that plug-in weed eater right there in the backyard, and I was inside and I heard the weed eater going, and the noise kind of scared me, and Mom said, "Sam, that weed eater ain't gonna hurt you." And I finally went outside, and the fright waned off. Then further down the line, Dad decided to invest in a gas weed eater. It had spectacular looking green housing, kind of grass green housing, curved shaft, and the rotor only had a string outlet to it. Back then, the best I can remember, all the weed eaters manufactured only had one string outlet instead of two on each side like most trimmers of today. And Dad was out weed eating the yard. There was a gas weed eater with its resonating engine, distinctive hissing sound, and I went outside and hollered, "Dad! Dad!" And Mom said, "Sam, there ain't no way he can hear you over that," and kind of enjoyed, watching the gas trimmer for the first time, and that was the first gas trimmer I ever saw in my entire life. Then we moved to Tennessee in 1983. And Dad continued to use that, green, weed eater. And one day when it was stored away, on more than one occasion, I noticed the inscription, big yellow conspicuous letters, weed eater. Thought that was pretty distinctive. Yep. And I thought, being a little boy, I thought it said that because that is a weed eater. It being that is a weed eater, they decided to, machine inscribe weed eater over the housing. It's a weed eater, so it says weed eater to it. In the spring of 1995, when my class was fixing to graduate high school, towards the end of the semester, my literature teacher, British literature, I think, and decided to round up all of us class and all of us take a stroll down to the vocational center so he could pick up his push mower. So we all strolled that way, and there, waiting near the vocational center, was Mr. Stiles, push mower. The vocational students had just got done, modifying, the mower, a nice, beautiful green deck and what have you. And then, Mr. Stiles started conversing about his mower. And the first question he asked us was, have y'all ever seen a Weedeater mower before? This is just a brand name Weedeater. Then he elaborated about the procedure he had accomplished, he had the students accomplish, and that is removing the bale from his mower. That stupid bale you have to hold back to keep the engine going, which was an early 80s mandate, government mandate. Apparently, carelessness had increased. More people were getting cut up by the mower blade, and before then, mowers just had a lever, a throttle lever. You could shut it off that way, or maybe a switch on the engine, on and off switch. But then it got mandated to that holdback bale, and Mr. Stiles thought that was annoying. I can see why that bale is there for safety reasons, but at the same time, depending on the mower that you own, it can be pretty, damn annoying to have to, start the mower back up every time you have to move away. So Mr. Stiles loaded the mower up in the trunk of his car and kept conversing about his mower. And once again elaborated, he had the bale removed from it. So if you looked at the mower handle, no more bale. He had it retrofitted or to where I guess you just shut it off, engine valve, manually, what have you. Back then they were more lenient, but nowadays, if you take your mower into a small engine shop for repair, it better have that bale to it, or they're gonna deny giving your mower back to you due to litigation issues. Yeah, I'm glad I have my battery-powered Cobalt to where I can just, every time I release the bale, all I have to do is just pull back again and push the button. No more stupid string. But the Weedeater branded string trimmers and mowers have apparently been discontinued. You can't find them new online anywhere. You know what? I'm not a fanatic of, gas-powered Weedeaters at all anymore, but the very first Weedeater branded Weedeater. Yep, that's why it said Weedeater, because that was a brand name, which at the time I thought that was just simply describing then that's a Weedeater. But that's still accentuated in my brain and provides, good nostalgia, even though I'm not a fan of gas trimmers. But I mean, that's mainly the only, gas trimmer that I'm a fan of, which is probably long buried in a landfill. And also, I mean, the nostalgia for the Weedeater branded and inscribed lawnmowers, still lives on. Especially Mr. Styles having us walk all the way to the vocational school just so he could pick up and load his mower. And tell us all about having the bale removed and what have you. Great times.